sorry about that. Again, welcome to the Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District Board of Commissioners Work Session. We've got several items on the agenda for today. We'll be talking about those, and we will take public comments. Okay? All right. Yep. Let's go ahead and do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Okay.
Roll call now.
I guess we better do a roll call.
Commissioner Srott. Commissioner Stamps.
Here?
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Rolfe. Commissioner Pinkley. Here. All present.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get into our work session. First thing on there is the advertising budget. Rich, you want to enlighten us on that?
So the Hypro came with me with all their stuff they had and what they advertised for us and the amounts of money that they wanted and stuff like that, which I put down. And I guess we need to decide what we can and cannot do as of now. What we're looking at on this one. Vern, you have a list, or you want to talk to us?
Thanks, Vern. Thank you, sir.
Vernon Anderson, 60 Shields Spur. I am the treasurer for Hypro. Hypro has been in existence since 2017 and does the advertisement work for HICID. We produce the ads and we work with the companies that are there in terms of just trying to get the ads finished and ready in time. And then the bills are all sent directly to HICID, and you guys pay those. And we can start with that top one up there, Arkansas Travel Guide. And that was $59.90, and that's a full page issue in the Arkansas Travel Guide. We feel like it's a critical ad that has to be covered. But when we started in 2017, we had no ads in the state of Arkansas. We weren't even on the map of Arkansas Travel Guide. And after 2 years, we did get ourselves on the map and decided a full page is worth that cost to do that on there. Now on that, I could talk a little bit more about that just in a second here, but the Arkansas Travel Guide, we moved up to where we got to go with them to Chicago 2 years in a row, along with Bella Vista and Hot Springs. And so we were up there with their big stage and met about 700 people each of those 2 years. And unfortunately, that HICID paid for the travel fees for that. I'm sorry, take that back. Hypro paid for the fees to go travel and the hotel fees for the 2 people we sent the first year and 4 people that we sent the second year. This year we turned them down, which is probably an expensive in one regard of move that we hated to do because we're still hoping that maybe they'll go somewhere else for another show. And we've commented that we think we should be in Dallas, Houston, or even New Orleans and would do a better job, and maybe Kansas City too. But anyhow, that wasn't in the making for that time, so we're not in a show this year with them. Eureka Springs Visitors Guide, I think this is close to right, $3,500. Again, you guys get the bill for that, and it's I think that's an annual one that you pay annually, as well as the Arkansas Travel Guide, that's paid annually. To that guide, obviously with 700,000 people coming to Eureka, being 4.5 miles away, we need to be advertising that magazine. That's a full-page ad also. Dropping to quarter pages, half pages, you might save a few bucks, but you've missed the big point with trying to be sure and catch people's attention, because especially in the Arkansas Travel Guide, it's getting to be really thick, and it's nice to have the full page in there. We have a chance to get our ads seen. Fun Guide. The Fun Guide has been a heck of a magazine, and I'm sorry, I hope I have some over there in the pile there, and I can show you. I assume everybody knows what the Fun Guide is. That comes out monthly, really 10 months a year. Per se, I think 2 months they do publish some more. I mean, they don't change it, but they put out books as needed to get them out there. That Fun Guide, we have a full-page ad in that, and it costs roughly $52.20 a year. And I don't know what that is divided by 12, but it's $400 and some dollars a month, I guess. I think you guys do pay yours monthly. I think they send you a monthly bill, but I'm not sure of that. That Fun Guide is in all 13 Arkansas Visitors Centers. They have been, I think it's really helped us because we have that little narrow anemones brochure that you guys just bought another 10,000 for $400, something like that. That I'm sending about 50 a month to each of those 13 centers. And I think it's because somewhat the Fun Guide's probably sitting right next to it, hopefully. And we think people are looking at that Fun Guide and thinking about Holiday Island. But that was really something we hadn't been doing and should have been perhaps doing a long time ago. But that needs to continue out, that brochure. The Northwest Association, that's really two different fees. One's a membership fee, which I think was about $2,000, and maybe and then for an ad, we have an ad, and again, I assume it's a full page. It used to be a small magazine. They went full size. I haven't seen one yet this year, bigger size book, so we have a full page ad, and I'm thinking that costs us about it's about $5,000 to belong to the Northwest Arkansas Association. Now again, Northwest Arkansas Association magazine is being sent out to a lot of people, obviously, since they are drawing in a ton of people, and we still believe that's awfully important to continue to belong there. And then we're asking you to budget for 2 quarters of 700 leads. We've come to the conclusion that the shows were not that valuable in terms of being able to see what we got for it and knowing what we're getting. And that's hard in all the advertisement business. You really have a hard point trying to measure where is it hitting. And so our feeling is the Arkansas Travel Guide, we work with CJRW, and we buy a total of 700 leads for $1,400, $2 a lead, and it travels, they come in over about a 10-week period to get that 700 leads. And the thing I would say about that is, it's somebody went to the digital Arkansas Travel Guide, specifically Arkansas State Travel Guide, and then they specifically picked out people that they were interested in brochures. And I'd like to think that Holiday Island's getting hit pretty quick, I think, to get that 700 leads in less than 10 weeks. But they picked Holiday Island, and they picked the state of Arkansas. So I think there is a measurement there that is coming into it that says that travel guide is important to us. Again, we don't pay, I don't know anything about the golf ads except that in Fun Guide, a quarter of a page of that goes to pay for a golf ad. And then I think the golf magazine, golf may have some with some of their weekly papers, but I'm not sure about that. And also it doesn't include scorecards or brochures or any of that cost. So basically, you guys pay the bills. We prepare the ad and try to stay on top of it. We've had other ads. We tried Branson for a while. That was a waste of money in our opinion. They wouldn't even put us on their map, so we decided to say, forget that, guys. But we think all the rest of these are important. We've tried some other Arkansas, there was an Arkansas magazine that we got into for one time, and it was really a good buy, but then they decided, they got pretty good money for it, they decided to make something more expensive. So we didn't follow up with that one. And again, not sure what kind of results that we're getting or where that's going to. I will say the Fun Guide, by the way, is at all 13 visitor centers, and they've now expanded into Missouri and say that they'll have brochures all the way up to Kansas City, which I think is south of Kansas City, not quite ready to push into Kansas City, but they're working at that. Questions on this?
Vern, thank you for being here, and also you came to the city meeting the other day, you and Donna Putman, and gave a lot of good information like this. But I have a question on the estimated annual cost. Our budget is about 6 months, we're about 6 months into our budget now for HICID, and are you suggesting that these be for 25 for the next year, or?
Well, I think, I'm pretty sure the Arkansas Travel Guide's paid for. Reasonably sure the 3,500 for the Reach Springs Guide has probably been invoiced to you for sure, and I think you would have paid it. I think the only thing you're getting monthly is the fund guide.
Okay.
And I think you've already paid the Northwest Arkansas. I think those have all been paid for this year.
Okay.
And they've, all those guys have been, all those organizations, I should say, have been willing to work with us on trying to pick up funding. We've had some of the, if you haven't paid these, some of them have agreed maybe to wait until your January budget. But I don't think that's the case. I think these have all been paid for, but I'd like to think so.
Well, another question is, tell us what's happening with HiPro, your organization.
Well, HiPro, of course, is a membership organization, and it's a volunteer membership. We have $25 memberships for the single and $50 for the members. And at one point, we had over 100 members that were giving us money pretty regularly. We don't send out, we haven't been sending out or have not sent out invoices. So we just kind of rely on people to pay. And so for the most of those years, till COVID came along, people were regularly giving us money in there to keep paying for the things that we had. We have the 2 websites, Visit Holiday Island, the Retire Holiday Island. We've had to move into MailChimp now, or Chimp Mail, whichever way it is, but to handle all the people that we are now sending information to every month. We have over 2,000 people on our list that are not dropping out very fast. Now, I'm probably one of those people who don't want to cancel it because, or unsubscribe because I'm not sure what the unsubscribe button will do. But we do try to tell them we have MailChimp and that they can unsubscribe. So, but we also send out, we spend about $200 a year on the sending out packages to the visitor centers, and then we spend, which is our money, again, and all postage, all things that we had to send out to people. HiPro paid those costs. We never did ask or collect money from HICID. And we have a Magic Jack phone as well, which is like $50. So our costs are minimal that we have to keep in business. However, our membership is minimal too. It's down to about 25 people who have paid in the last 6 months. So we're concerned that our opinion is if we can't do that 700 leads once a year, and we're going to do that, actually we're doing that right now, and HiPro money will pay for that, but we're probably not in a position to pay for that again this year unless we start getting more memberships to it.
How many of the 700 leads a year would result in somebody coming here? Have you tracked if they bought a lot or a home here?
Well, we do get, we offer to give people free tours when they come up, and we have had, I don't know, half a dozen to a dozen people who have taken advantage of that. We don't get a lot of phone calls to Magic Jack, which just kind of surprises me. I would think there'd be a fairly large number of people, 65-year-olds, wanting to call instead of do all the other line, but that's not the case. So I don't know. I mean, again, it's the issue of how do you do it? We are not able to get your addresses and phone numbers of all the people who come in here and sign up their water bill. So that makes it a little tougher. We try to work with the visitors information group who tries to get people on a, I don't know, next door neighbors thing. Tell me who's here, you know, who's close by. And we haven't really asked them for statistics on where those people are from and whether they heard our ads originally. So it's a challenge, no doubt about it. But
When will your volunteers stop answering the Magic Jack phone and doing other things like sending out, like you're telling Suzanne does that, and when will that all end?
Yeah, well, we have talked about, you know, that we were ready to push that on, and the APP tax is certainly a thing that will allow that to happen, but we will have to we need to stay in long enough, making sure A&P gets done and passed. And then I think their estimates are, April for money to start flowing back in to take over that stuff. So,
Vern, how many of these have online presence as well as their written magazines?
online presence, well, I'm pretty sure you get Eureka Springs and I don't know about the Fun Guide. That would be the only one there. I don't know whether they have online. Do they? Yes, they do have online. That's right. They have online presence too. They're all three online presences.
Vern, do you have any idea if there has been a short-term vacation rental type program association formed with all the short-term rentals that we're getting in here now?
Well, no, I think that's why we're still not sure if we have 300 or 125. I don't know. I think the answer would be, however, our last ad that we sent out, I believe, listed the fact that we do have, we don't sell, let me start with one thing. Our line always says, we are not realtors, the first thing we send out. We're not Holiday Island ambassadors. So we do not list or help with any realtors of any sort. We are not selling houses. In the same case, we wouldn't necessarily be selling timeshare, or not timeshares, but 30-day short rentals, except that it seems to me like right now there's some value to advertising if they are available. That would help us get more money on the A&P tax. Also, it might help our swimming pool in terms of being sure that we haven't listed who they are, but we say in the statement, if you want to swim, we've got the point out there and all that, but if you want to swim our swimming pool for a kids' pool, then you need to be sure that your timeshare or your short-term rental has paid the dues for you to do that. Ask about that. So I don't know if people understand that to start off with, but we think that we hope that A&P Group will at least mention that they do have those people who are paying the money, and that I would think that's the place for them to come. Come here on the island.
Okay.
Yes, I've got a question. I see we're spending about $30,000 a year on advertising, and I just wonder, at the golf course, if we're spending that money locally around, like in nearby communities, we're not going to have people come for 1,000 miles to do the golf course. Should we be using more money for local advertising, like in Branson, Fayetteville, for the golf course to bring people here that we know are probably going to come on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, rather than to advertise? We need to maybe spend more money at that point for those people. And I think we're going to get a lot more golfers, because I right now I don't see that many out-of-town people. I see some out-of-town people, but I don't see nearly as many. And I'm just wondering if we're doing a good job of advertising that. I'll let you comment on that.
Well, we tried to compete in the Branson magazine and had our golf course right there next to Leadstone and next to one of Johnny Morrison's. I think it was Buffalo Ridge at that time or whatever. Right there on that page, but it cost iPro, I think it was about $4,000. We funded that ourselves because Heisted at that time felt like they could only afford the Branson ad. I don't know. I don't think that. I think the ad, if I was going to say, again, anything we can do to improve our ad for the local people, the people visiting Eureka Springs. Right now, Peggy is trying to get us interested in trying to find when you get ready to leave Eureka Springs, Holiday Island. Well, there's not really a turnaround there. There is a driveway that goes down to the to the railroad. It would be our hope to get a sign up there at that area, where that is similar to our signs on 187. It would say 27 Hills Golf, Marina, and some of the other things that we think would bring people on out. Because a lot of people do seem to turn. They get those turnarounds right there. They realize they're going past, but they haven't seen anything other than Holiday Island.
Well, my question was, do we need to do like our local newspapers and should we just make ourselves an ad? You guys make us an ad and put it in the weekly newspaper of all these communities, then have it there all the time? Maybe put that in there so that we have a special, or always a special first time you get 20 or 30% off for the first time you've ever been at that course. Something, maybe we need to be doing that, and that would give us a lot more, you might say, people looking at that ad. Because you're doing,
I don't
the
really-
addition you're doing here, the advertising, is more of a widespread, but it's really not real beneficial to the golf course, I don't think.
Well, and again, specifically for that question, the answer is obviously if you're not here, it's hard to play golf here.
Yeah.
But the question would be, I think you'd have to go check those prices. I would find that trying to put an ad of any significance to catch anybody's attention in our local newspapers would be, in my mind, expensive, doing that every week.
Well, if we just put a short little ad in there and,
Well, you can't just tie a bargain there and say first time. Well, first time, we don't have any records of who's been here. We don't have any records who's left necessarily.
well,
Other
we
than
would we'd have to do that ourselves probably and just, and make a ad and try it for a little while and see what it did.
Yeah.
But if we did some kind of then we would keep a record of those people so that we know that that was the first time, just to get them to come here to see our course, then we probably would get them to come back.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
So maybe we need to spend a little bit of our advertising
Yeah.
on that point, is
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, again, the national ads that we have,
Right.
Arkansas Travel Guide,
Well,
it's like a line across
Right.
there, and may have a small picture of one of the driving ranges and stuff. So it's not like we're gonna take that off and take that money and put it over here. I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah.
I mean, you might as well get it out there. People who are wanting to go to a resort place, it's important for a golf course to be there. They feel, and to buy property there. There's been surveys ran on that says that, no, we don't play golf, but we feel like it holds the value of the property up, and we like to watch people wander up around the golf courses and playing and doing things, So I think it's important to get it out to people who would actually come here and buy homes. And so and I don't think we're going to save much on the ads that we're using right now for that.
Thank you, Vern. That's very good. Thank you very much. We could probably talk all day about marketing Holiday Island, but we have a couple other things we need to do. The next item on the agenda.
Rebecca
Thank you.
Sherman.
Thanks, Randy.
So I have a question because I can't see the paper that was handed out. A couple of questions. What was the price on your sheet? What are you asking the district to pay? Well, I'll start from the beginning.
All these items, travel guide,
Yeah, I followed. What's the total? Oh, you didn't.
20,000, 26,000 there, and then those, that makes it, so we're talking close to 30,000.
30,000, thank you, for these ads.
Yeah.
Which this year, most of them have been paid, but then this is mostly for next year, mostly.
Yes,
So,
I think so. I don't pay the bills, so I don't pay.
okay, well, there's my question. So these ads that are appearing, do they say paid for by High Sid or they say paid for by High Pro?
I don't say either. They think by high pro, for sure.
And when High Sid is paying these things that you're paying for advertising, I'll make this comment. I'd like to see that sort of broken down in those financial sheets so that I can see these things. I mean, if it's there, I'm not seeing it.
I'll bet if you make a request up front, they can pull up that advertising account and you'll see everything that's been paid in there.
You also won't know for sure, you're not going to say the state of Arkansas, it's going to say CJRW, and that is the advertising agency that does their advertising.
Yeah, I know them well.
Eureka Springs, I don't know if we send it direct to the association or through their advertising company that puts it together.
I know CJRW well.
I'll bet you'll be able.
Oh,
to see.
the FOI's already sitting in the desk. I did that last night. So, my point is when the financials are posted, which is by department, I don't see this broken down under admin. So I'm making that point because this is $30,000 out of the budget.
We'll see if we can get that information for you.
Well, I'm also not just saying information, I'm sort of doing one of these like freebie professional comments here. The other part is that you've already answered the question, paid for by. You might want to ask your attorney, because I have a feeling if we HICID are paying for them, do we proofread them?
They've been brought in to be advised of the people that, and schedule change, and the count, sometimes isn't good because the data that was given to us wasn't good. And there are changes made, very few though, to be honest with you, because our people did a good job, putting a good ad together. And some guy people were very fantastic at making an interesting reading through that.
Yeah, I look at those too. I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Sherman. Second thing on here is proposal for the Assistant Fire Chief Gary Martin salary proposal. If you'd like to address that.
Yes. So with the many hours that Gary's been putting in with the inspections for the long-term, short-term, and businesses, in our contract with the city, it actually says that we will do the inspections. So he's been working very long hours and a lot of overtime trying to get the inspections done during his work time and the 24-hour shifts that he does. So we're proposing that if we switch him to a $60,000 salary, and then that way he can get it done within the allotted time that he has, it'll cut back on his overtime, which will help us in the budget. Then we also came up, I'm going to say Randy, also came up with a plan for the second re-inspections because a lot of the businesses can't seem to get certain things done at the right time. So we have to go back 3 or 4 times. So for a second re-inspection, we were wanting to charge, and then every inspection after that, we were wanting to charge even more. Randy and Gary, either one can stand up and speak and give us their info.
Thank you, Rich. There are numerous advantages to moving Gary to day shift, as I would call it, for our coverage. One of the problems that our public is having is they can't get in touch with us. We have no office staff. If no one's in the building, we're out at the fire stations, out on calls, doing maintenance, they can't hear the phone, it goes to voicemail. A lot of our requests are by email, and sometimes those don't get caught till late in the day. So we have a lot of complaints from our public that they want to get the inspections done, they need a re-inspection done, they have a fire code question, and they can't get in touch with us. Having Gary available every day of the week will help to cut down on some of those complaints and give us a better image in our public's mind. Another advantage to this is during the daytime business days, we're low on volunteers. 1 out of 3 calls at our fire department has no volunteers show up. So we depend on our 2 paid people on staff to handle those calls, which disrupts Gary being able to do his inspections because he gets called away, he misses appointments because he's out on calls. So not only will this allow him to catch these appointments, it'll also allow us more staffing during the weekday when we have less volunteers because he can still go on more critical emergencies. I believe this would be a great help to us, and to recoup some of that financial move, I think that we should start charging for every re-inspection. This is when we've got somebody that just consistently doesn't want to meet the fire codes far as dragging it out. And I'd propose something along the lines of $50 for the first reinspection, and after that, $100 for the next reinspection, $100 thereafter. That way we can recoup some of Gary's time. May I answer any questions?
Does the city, are these for the short-term rentals? Is that what they are?
This is for the short term. All of the rental property has to be inspected, the long terms, like our apartment buildings, and also all of the businesses in Holiday Island have to be inspected. And then they're scheduled for inspections after that as well in the coming years.
Okay. Is the city, and the mayor is here and several council members, are the city contributing to this at all? I guess I would ask a question.
We are not charging right now for any inspections or re-inspections, so we're on new ground here.
Okay.
I guess I would also like to comment that,
Step up to the podium, please.
make me get up.
You know,
All right, Dan Keys, 120 Holiday Island Drive, and Mayor of City of Holiday Island. We do not, when we wrote the ordinance for business licenses and for short-term rentals, we realized the need to do an inspection. We had no experience with this in the past, so we underappreciated the workload that would go into doing this. The workload is particularly rough on these guys because, as we should have probably expected, everybody waited till the last minute to apply for their CUP or their business license. So we have this 100 inspections needing to be done by a deadline of July 1st, which we've already talked, it's on our agenda for tomorrow night at the city council meeting about extending the deadline because there's no way that they can get all the inspections done by July 1st. So I'm certainly open to adding something to our ordinance that says that under certain conditions, you'll have to pay for your, re-inspection. We do that with the building code. If we have to go back and re-inspect, not for every little nitpicky thing, but if we have a particular builder that just, habitually doesn't do his own inspection first, expects the building inspector to do his quality control for him, and so we have to go back multiple times. We have been charging $100 for every re-inspection. So certainly something we can look at putting in the ordinance. We would need a recommendation as to what would be appropriate.
I guess,
But I do want to kind of make one point is that I think after this year, after this summer, this whole inspection thing can be smoothened out considerably. First of all, an inspection isn't required every year to maintain your license or your conditional use permit. I think an inspection is good for 3 years. Once we have a list of everybody that has, a business license, then, we, the city, can be proactive when we see that these licenses are coming due to contact people and try to get their inspection scheduled. Right now, the tail is wagging the horse, or the dog. We need to have the dog, wagging the tail where we proactively go out, contact the businesses, give them some options as to when they want to have their inspection done. And, we can start a year before the inspection deadline and spread these inspections. I mean, we're talking about, right now, I think we're up to 94 conditional use permits, and I don't know where we are on business licenses because people have download the application off the website and we have no idea who downloaded an application and who didn't. So until they walk in the door with their application and their inspection report, we have no idea who's all out there working on it. But going down the road, we will know, and we will be able to start contacting these people and say, you know, we're scheduling your inspection for February, you know, pick one of these dates, and then, you know, it'll take this workload off, or spread the workload out.
I guess I have a question for the three of you fellows. Are the people that are the second inspection, do they just forget about it, or that's not important, or they're out playing golf? Why are we having re-inspections? It's a pretty big deal. If you've got a property that needs to be rented or whatever, where are they when you call for a re-inspection? Why don't they show up on the initial inspection?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Morning, Gary Martin, Assistant Chief. What I've been noticing with my re-inspections is this is all new. Folks are downloading these sheets from the website. It's just they may miss something or have misread something, and a lot of times it's they've misunderstood about the placement of a smoke detector or a fire extinguisher, and then I will educate them on it and let them know what we're looking for. They'll get back with me, or sometimes they'll send me a picture of it, and then I can check them off on that. A lot of times it's just a misunderstanding or just trying to get this done the first time. Once we've been through these, this first initial, we call it wave of inspections, I think it's going to smooth out, because now people's going to know what's expected, and everything else will go a whole lot smoother. I fully expect to see that in the future.
Last question. David
Yes.
is right behind you, building inspector. Do you do them together sometimes?
Sometimes we do, if we can coordinate with each other. We have done some together. Sometimes our schedules doesn't allow us to, but we try to as much as we can.
How many people can do these inspections? Are you the only one in the whole department that can do them?
We have 3 fire inspectors, myself, Gary, and a gentleman named John Sturgis, sometimes available to help us. The reason I've asked to do most inspections, we have spread the workload out to the fire department. Lieutenant Sturtevant is also our training officer, and he's also responsible for our hydrants, so I don't want to cut into his, although we will back each other up. Another reason I like to try to have just one person in charge of inspections, that way we're consistent. I've been on departments before where, well, this guy come in and inspected, he allowed it, why are you not allowing it? I'm trying to stay away from that. I'm trying to keep this as consistent as possible to reduce confusion.
I think that the city needs to pass the ordinance for the $100 second reinspection, and then every inspection after that. So if they pass that ordinance, then they have the contracts and everything with the businesses, and then they can collect the money from that and then reimburse the HICID back through.
Well, I think we ought to get reimbursed for the inspection fees by the city.
Yep.
Because if we're paying the bill for the fire department, we certainly ought to get the money that they're charging for, and I think $100 is really cheap. Maybe ought to be up to $200 for that inspection fee. It's a one-time deal every 3 years, and I think $200 is not out of line to have that inspection, and that should go back to the city for us paying the bill for the fire department to do this.
And I think that's something that me and Dan can talk about. I think the fire inspection and the building inspection should be set the same through their ordinance. So that way, if they're gonna keep getting called out there because certain things aren't getting done, then sure, we can decide what amount of money. But then the city will collect it, and then they'll keep it separate, and then reimburse back to us for these inspections.
I think that'd be a good idea with the building inspector and the fire inspection all at the same, fee, and we get that in.
Because time is money, and every time they gotta go back there, it's just more
Okay.
money.
But I think
Indeed.
that's a pretty important part, and I think we should get it done, and I think, Dan, probably, that would be one of my suggestions, that we raise that fee to $200, and that would be my suggestion, that I think it probably costs that much.
First of all, just a comment. Whatever you decide, give it to me in writing so that I have a
Right.
clear understanding of, not your idea, not your idea, not your idea, but the board's idea on what would be, what you would like to see. I do want to express somewhat of a concern. We don't want to make it, too punitive to, for people to get a business license. We had a lot of public input about what the business license itself should cost. And, anything over $25 seemed to be excessive in most people's opinion. If we tack a $200 inspection fee on that, now a business license costs you $225, and I think that we'll get immense blowback from that. The way I look at it, well, first of all, the fire department always did do inspections, fire inspections for businesses. The new thing here is the short-term rentals have never required, we didn't have them, so it didn't require any kind of inspection. The way I look at it is it's an ounce of prevention. If we do the inspection and make sure that the short-term rentals have all of the proper, are meeting the fire safety code, it'll prevent us having to respond to a fire one of these days down the road because somebody's fried chicken caught fire in the kitchen and they didn't have a fire extinguisher there, so they burned the house down instead of just grabbing the fire extinguisher. So, yes, cost is important, but we're also here to provide a service to the community, and we can't, we have to be reasonable in what we charge for fees.
Dan, it's not a HICID plan anymore. It's a HICID city plan now.
Right,
So we will come up as a HICID and a city together,
yeah.
decide what we want to charge, work together, set in your ordinance, and go on.
Right.
So it's,
I totally agree with especially the second time around. This first time around, people didn't really know what to expect. And so it's understandable that there would be things on the checklist that they would fail the inspection on. And, like they said, that a lot of them you can just take care of by taking a picture and sending it in instead of doing a physical reinspection. Next time around, they should know what the rules are. And if you have to do a reinspection, I certainly don't have a problem with a $100 fee or something like that for a reinspection.
yep, it's going to be a little learning curve for all business owners right now because of the changes.
Rich, I guess I feel that, we're, the three paid firemen we have are getting paid on a yearly basis $341,537 a year. So, this is costing us a lot of money for this inspection. So I think that we ought to get some of this money back. And so that's why I think the fee ought to be a little higher than that. The city I was from, it was the inspection fee for the city, and the city did the inspections, was $250 for every business, but that was every year. And that was just a small town, okay? That's nothing like here. So, I mean, if we're going to pay $341,000 a year, and we ought to get some kind of reimbursement back for it, okay? All right?
Like I said, I think us in the city just need, we'll take our side of it, we'll take their side of it, and we'll come up with a reasonable number to get it in the ordinance, and that way we can start collecting on it.
Okay.
Because right now, we're just not really even collecting on it.
Well, right now, there's nothing
Yeah,
there.
I mean, once we take a step forward, it's gonna be the right step forward. We just need to get going.
Okay?
I have a question for Gary. What percentage of these people require a reinspect?
Right now, I'd say probably close to 50%, just trying to get the new get used to the new rules and everything. Now that I have noticed, I will say this, since the sheets were posted online with the city, the re-inspections I feel have went down. I've not been keeping track of percentages and numbers on that, but just in me going back, it seems to me like they have been going down since those have been posted online.
Do you have a list on that, on those applications, what we expect when we come to make the first inspection?
Yes, they have, what is posted on the city website
Okay.
is the actual form that I use to check off.
And so it requires, it says you have to have a fire extinguisher,
Yes, yes, sir.
okay, and everything else.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's just what I was, so that we don't, that would cut down big time. It should cut down the
Yes.
second inspections, if people follow that and read it.
Yes, I have noticed that since we did get that posted, the second inspections, there's still
Okay.
some, but not like it was.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be better.
Yes, and the folks do appreciate it.
Because you gotta respect, we gotta respect the people that, if they don't know what they're supposed to have,
Yes.
then we can't charge them for a reinspection, but if they do know what they have and what we require, we can charge them for a second inspection.
And I've been trying to work with folks too, if it's something simple as mounting a smoke detector in a bedroom, hey, send me a picture of it, because I've already seen the room, I kind of know what it looks like.
Yep.
Email me a picture of it, they send it to me, I check it off, I email them a copy.
Then you
and
don't
they
have to
email.
go send
And I don't
anybody out.
the only time I go back on the
That's
second
just my
inspection
next
now is if
question
it's a
was-
lot of it.
That was my next question, that was
Yes.
gonna ask you, can they email you a picture of, say, a fire extinguisher or?
Yes, if it's something
okay.
small, 1 or 2 items, no problem. If it's where they've just totally blown the whole thing, I'll
Do
go
you
back
all,
out for inspection.
the fire department before, I was a fireman for 25 years, we charged, in our town, we charged everybody, we refilled the fire extinguishers.
Yeah, we
Do
did too in the
you-
department
and
I was on
you
before.
What do you
Yeah.
charge for that?
Oh, this was 30 years ago. I can't remember what we.
What we charge
charged.
now, I mean, in Holiday Island?
For
You don't, you don't refill them at all?
We refer to people to the ones you buy at, your Walmarts or whatever, those are disposable. You pitch those. They
Right.
can't be refilled.
But if you buy a 5-pounder,
But if
they're
you,
not,
well,
you
it
can refill
depends on them
those,
where you
or
get it. But if you buy
10-pounder.
them through the professional services, such as Marmick and Dunk and all that, we actually recommend that you have a service with them, because they'll come in, inspect them, check them off, and as it.
You don't
full
check the
inspection.
fire extinguishers when you go out there to make sure that they're good?
I do. What I do is I'll look and make sure it's mounted properly, right height. I'll look at the gauge to make sure that the pressure's right. And a lot of times I'll even take it off the mount, turn it upside down to make sure the powder's loose. And while I'm doing this, I'm educating them on, this is what you need to do once a month.
Right.
And if you have a service through these professional services, there's a green tag that they stamp every year when they inspect it. And on the back of that tag is a place for a date and initials. And I'll ask them, when you check this once a month, please date it and just put your initial. That way, when I come in and do the yearly or 3-year inspection, oh, okay, great, you've been inspecting this, you've been keeping check on it. And then I'll show them how to inspect it.
Okay, because we always had people dropped off their fire extinguishers, and then we had some of the volunteer, it was a total volunteer
Yes.
fire department, but we had a Pacific, every year we had a Pacific bunch of people that they would refill the fire extinguishers. You think that's a idea that maybe a service that we ought to provide?
Well, with me, and I don't know what Chief H thinks, but with me, I like the idea of a company that does that as their business, having that type of liability.
We don't want
I'd
to
be
carry the
afraid if
liability
I
of
just-
that.
if
I
it
just
failed,
wondered,
yeah.
Yeah, there's contractors out there to do that, and they get paid for it, and they have the insurance for it.
Okay,
We'd have to cover more insurance and liability for that.
I just
and
know
it's
that we
not
did
something
it there,
we
and
do.
I just wondered why we weren't doing it here.
Okay.
All right, okay,
Let's
that's fine.
move along. Thank you very much.
Real quick, Larry,
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna go ahead and move forward with Gary Martin going to salary
Uh-huh.
and switching his hours. Is that fine with everybody?
I think
Okay.
so.
All right.
It can't-
That's
we
the
can't
work
do it.
session.
Yep. Yep. All right.
Know what I'm doing moving forward, so you guys aren't left in the dark and not know what's going on.
All right, very good. All right, then reimbursement for Leonard Walton's EMT training expenses. I looked those over. If we're training an EMT,
Full-time EMT, fireman, and Arkansas law, if they're a full-timer, and with that we need to reimburse them for their stuff.
Yep.
It says in our law, it says in the Arkansas law, if any county, city, or town, we're not a city and we're not HISIS is not, it's a SID. So that law does not apply to us. So my thought is that it doesn't apply to us.
What is this $3,900 for?
All of his EMT training that he had to take classes and everything for, that he paid for out of pocket to be an EMT, which is required for him to be a full-time fireman.
Seemed to me that it doesn't matter whether the reg applies to us or not. The $4,000 to have a fully licensed, it's the right thing to do to pay for his education.
We were, number one, what's the percentage of calls that you have with medical as opposed to fire?
70 to 80% of our calls
Are medical, and it's critical with using the Eureka Springs Ambulance Service to have an EMT on staff to be there on those calls, because
I agree, it's needed, but my situation is that we're not required to do that. And, when we hire somebody, I think we hired this guy in, 2021, is that correct?
October of '22.
22, that the next time we hire somebody, that we ought to make sure that they have the required EMT certification. That would be one of the requirements for the job.
if they're hiring for that job, I would think that would be definitely an order.
Yeah, and a lot of the part-timers right now are going through classes for their EMTs and everything. And we hired, well, Larry was hired before I was here, of course, which then Randy told him that he needed to be EMT certified.
We had a
Since he was
fire
a
department,
full-time-
but we also had a rescue, and the rescue was totally separate from the fire department.
Yeah, but since he was full-time, when we asked,
And they were all
required him to do
volunteers.
that, I just think we should reimburse him for it.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Moving right along, the next item on here is the HICID regulation codes. I have not had a chance to review them, but they're some dandies. Where they ever came from and why they were ever written is beyond my comprehension. But anyway,
And I just think that we need to go through them and update a lot of them, because a lot of them are several years old and don't pertain to us anymore. So we just need to go through, redo them, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and we're looking out for our future.
I agree. Okay. We will do that, okay?
Or talk to me, whatever changes you want made.
Then, got on here that department head meetings, you're going to start having
So
those.
next month, we are planning, I want to do first Monday of the month. I want to do department head meetings, but I'm going to break them up. So I'll do one with water, street, or roads and fire department. So that way we can come up with hydrant flushing idea. Roads and water can work together on other patches and stuff. And then I'm going to break up another group with the golf course, swimming pool, campground, marina, and that way we can work on other things of bringing in attractions. So, I mean, it's two different things. If you bring all the guys in at the same time, we're going to get way off subject and it's going to take too long. So we're just going to break it up into two groups that actually pertain to each other. Nope, it's just going to be department head me, just department head and me.
And board, or just you?
Just me and
Okay,
the
I just
department
want to
head.
be clear on who's meeting,
And that way we can,
and that's fine.
yep, and
Well, I
we
think-
can come up with
And
ideas.
I think that's a good idea, because number one, the water guy's not interested in what's going on at the golf course.
Exactly.
And so I think we have to almost separate that out in two different meetings.
Yep, and this is just so you guys know that we are going to go forward with that, and then the next one is flushing of the hydrants. And I've talked to Dan and Randy. We need to focus on the deadhead hydrants first, the ones that are end of a main, and then we'll start working on ones in different units
Okay.
to get them flushed out, and that way it'll help our iOS score and plus flush our system out. But we'll do it with the water department, so that way it's done correctly, and hopefully we don't have any problems.
And that'll take care of the ones that have deceased as well?
Yep, and then that way we'll get a better head count of what needs to be replaced or repaired or whatever.
Sure, I'm glad, Rich, to hear you say that, because this has been dragging on really, really a long time, that we have not taken care of this. We did a couple, we did a few, then there were reasons why we couldn't do more. I think we have over 200 fire hydrants, and it just scares me. I'm not a firefighter, so don't get me wrong, but it scares me that one near my house is big, but it's going up in flames, and that fire hydrant isn't working, and we have to depend on tankers to do my house. It's a concern, and I think we need to be sooner rather than later, Rich, and I'm glad you and the fire chief and water superintendent are going to press forward sooner rather than later.
Mr. Chairman, we kind of went right by the regulation codes, and so I think we need to get back onto that, because I think I read through that 3 times, and believe me, there's a lot of regulations that are outdated, and I think we're open for a lot of things if we don't change it, especially with maybe, that's one of the reasons why we're being sued, I think, is this, of these regulations. Did you guys have a chance to read those specifically and go through them? Because I didn't understand it the first time, and the second time I didn't understand it very good either. But the third time I'm getting much better at it. So
We have got to look at that, and anything that you see, if you pass that information on to Rich.
well, I was already met with Rich on some of that stuff already,
Okay.
and I think the cost of those regulations, like for what we charge people for their house and for their lots and stuff, I think that's all kind of outdated in there. So we need to change that. Do you assume that, Rick?
A lot of stuff that we need to look at and addressing that.
Right.
And we're not gonna change them overnight.
No, but you do have the right, as I read through that, the district manager has the right to make those changes
On some things, yes.
on some things.
Yes. The other
But,
things is.
it goes through the board that goes through this board to make major changes, but there is provisions in there for you to make those changes without us having to decide those.
But I also feel like it's very important for us to have a discussion on it.
Well, I do too, I absolutely do.
And that way we're
but-
all on the same page. I could go in there and change stuff, but then is it gonna benefit the city?
So you're gonna
and everybody
will you have some of these wrote down then, for this next meeting?
Probably not for the next meeting. I think we
For
should
the
just get
meeting
this
after? then?
individually.
Because I've got some stuff wrote down, but I'm
Yep.
gonna have to read that one more time to
Yep.
go through that.
We'll have another work session in July. and
Yeah.
I think that's the time that we go over those
And then
things.
do something at the July meeting to,
And we could-
to change those regulations.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mills is here. I would like clarification. Did we write those regs ourselves, or they were written by the municipal code, through the Muni Code for the state of Arkansas? And they were updated in 2003, when Mr. Mills was on the board and several other people. Codified, yes, that's right, because that's what I'd read today. And I guess my question is, how much can we legitimately do? I think we're opening a big old can of worms.
Well, we can change any of those we want. We're the board, we can change those regulations at any time. We don't have to wait until we get sued to change a regulation.
Well, the suit doesn't have anything.
That's one of the reasons why we're being sued right now.
No.
Okay, all right.
I just feel like we have addressed certain issues as they came along, and you can go clear back to the beginning when it was online of what years regulations were amended, regulations were added, and I think a wholesale revisiting of everything and all of that code is probably something that's a long-term project. I don't see how we can
Do it.
I think it needs time to look at.
Yes, it does. Okay, meeting between the BOC and the city council.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I brought that up on the agenda, and talked about it a little bit. The city was formed in 2020 and is now 2024. We had one meeting between the two groups, and we had city council was out there. I think the BOC was back here. We could do that, and I think we need to do it in 2024. Just so what we were talking about earlier about inspections and fees and who does this and who does that, who gets the money, who's charged for it. There's a lot of cooperation that we could talk about and get the city council members' input and get the BOC members' input into this. One of the big things is we keep hearing about the fire department. Who could manage and who could take on the fire department? Can the city do that? And turn all those bills over to the city and all those great personnel over to the city? And I'm not being trying to be funny about this, but that's a big item, probably the biggest item we have in the CID budget. And so if there's a possibility of doing that, and you seem to have a lot of money that you can't spend right now, and we've got the road situation, which is really a good grants, but you've got other monies coming in, that maybe we can have a dialogue and come up with some ideas as to how we could make this work. Now, for those of you who haven't been here for a while, or have just joined Holiday Island a few years ago, there's a limit to what the CID is going to be operating on. You all know about AOBs, and you know about that type of situation. And I think it's incumbent upon us, and several of the commissioners agree with me, and city council, we need to lower our budget in the CID in order to come up with some money from the city and make this thing go longer. By this thing, I mean HICID not being ended. Now, there's some people, a small number, in my opinion, in the community that want CID to go away totally. Well, we can't do that because, and this is what we could discuss in the meeting, the city is determined they can only raise taxes above, 5 mills without an election of the people. Well, in this day and age about taxes, it's probably pretty doubtful that a tax would pass by that. That's my own opinion. So I think there's, it's just, the city hall now is down in a great place. You've got building inspectors, you've got fire inspectors, you've got, zoning is going well and so forth. But I think we just need a dialogue and a workshop situation, coming up with some ideas. The one that Vern brought up earlier, and Ms. Putnam earlier, about advertising and getting more people in here and selling lots. There's so many things that we could do, and I think we could do them coordinated together, just come up with some good ideas.
I think that's what these meetings would be for, and I applaud that. I think it's a wonderful idea that we all get a mindset of what the goals are and work to approve those and not go this direction, one with the city going one direction, the high city going another direction. It needs to be channeled, and I think that's what these meetings will do. Mayor Dan came up with the idea of putting certain members on a committee with other city people and all this other kind of stuff, which I thought was a good idea. We need to pursue that, I believe. I just think we need to pursue it.
Yeah, I still support the idea of having a committee look at long-range planning. I guess there's two things to consider as far as the city and the BOC or the district working together, and that, there's short-term things and there's long-term things. The short-term thing like the inspection expense, that's something that if we would have had a long-range planning committee 2 years ago, we wouldn't have thought of that anyway. So that's just something we're going to have to deal with. But I agree, there's got to be a long-term strategy. But if we are going to have a joint BOC city council meeting, we need to have an agenda, not just everybody get together in the room and, you know,
Correct. I think
And
I
start
think we gotta have it
talking,
in
you know.
black and white.
somebody, and maybe it's Rich and I need to be the two to create the agenda that says, in this joint workshop, we're gonna talk about the fire department. And, you know, it's always gonna come down to money, you know. Where are all the sources of money? How do we tap into those resources? How sustainable are those resources? And come up with a long-range plan. If the city, if there's a source of revenue available to the city that's sufficient to take over the fire department, and we can tap into that resource, the city would be more than happy to have these guys. Yeah. Well, and there very well may be a need for legislative changes. I mean, the city hadn't hardly done anything yet that didn't require changing some law. So it is possible to get it done. We got it done twice in the first, couple of months that we were a city. But, there's two things to keep in mind is that, Ken, well, first of all, I want to refute what Ken said. We do not have a lot of money that we're not spending. We have a general fund and we have a road fund. The general fund, every nickel is accounted for. And in fact, to cover this year's budget, we had to use $21,000 of carryover money from last year. So we're going to have to take a real hard look at our budget next year because cities cannot have a deficit budget. On the road side, yes, we're sitting on a big chunk of change. And I've already given you guys, hopefully you've all seen the plan that I put together that is not totally dependent on us getting the grant money, but part of it is dependent on getting the grant money. But between now and 2026, I expect the city to do something between $800,000 and $850,000 worth of paving. And, we will be spending that money. I did meet with the RDOT people last Monday about the grant project, and they agreed it's a worthy project. They're going to do a estimate. They're going to do the preliminary engineering and provide me with an estimate on what it's going to cost. They will make a recommendation to the street committee as to whether or not to approve our project, which they probably will. The only issue is funding. They can't predict with a high degree of certainty when the tax revenue is going to hit their bank account at RDOT. So he said it could be late next year or it could be actually funded in 2026. Either way, the city plans on doing some paving next year. If we do the grant one next year, we'll combine the projects. If the grant project is pushed out till 2026, we will still do some paving next year. Now, so we will be spending our money there too. As far as other sources of revenue, the city council can pass up to a 5 mil property tax without any approval from anybody. That's state law, 5 mil. But that's it. Even with a vote of the people, you can't go over 5 mils. It's in the Arkansas Constitution. 5 mils is it, which is why all cities have sales tax, and they live off of sales tax, not property tax. In fact, some cities, like Green Forest, gave up their property tax and passed the sales tax, and because there was so much more revenue available that way. And we could try to get a sales tax passed too. It'd be a hard sell. First of all, we would have to demonstrate that there's going to be offsetting reductions in assessments. But the real kicker is that our state legislature, in their intuitive wisdom, last year passed a law that says you can only have tax issues you can't have a special election anymore for a tax initiative. So, and it's too late to get one on the ballot for this November. So we're 2 years out from, 2.5 years out from even being able to vote on whether or not the city will have a sales tax. So that's off the table in the near term, but it is a possibility long term.
That's why these meetings, I think, are so important, that we go ahead and get this
Well, I think
accomplished.
sales tax is definitely a more equitable for everybody, and you reduces the property tax a lot, and it's fair and equitable to everybody, because everybody buys things. Just the guy that has a $100,000 house and a guy that has a $500,000 house, he's paying 5 times as much as this guy, and they're buying the same commodities. So if you have a sales tax, it's fair and equitable to everybody, because it depends on what you're spending. Sure, the guy spends a lot less money over here, he's going to pay less tax.
Yeah.
But it's fair and equitable.
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of commercial and retail business.
No, we don't.
In Holiday Island, so what we're depending on is what people spend locally.
And online.
And what they get from Amazon.
Again, these are all items for that meeting
Yeah.
between the BOC and the city.
Right.
We can sit here and talk about it till we all fall asleep. And so, anyway,
Larry,
that's what these
I forgot
meetings-
to add onto the agenda what I was, but I'll put that on the agenda for our regular meeting then, about the golf course. So I did not amend the agenda, and I'm sorry I forgot that when we started, but I will do that at our regular meeting, okay?
Well,
Because I didn't get it on the agenda.
I don't have any problem with you talking about it right now.
Can we talk about it right now? Well, I've had a lot of complaints, and I think, if you've been on the golf course lately, we talked with the golf course earlier about getting the water to the fairways and seeding some of these. There's so many spots where there's no grass growing, it's died, and they need to be working on that and surround the greens and the fairways. There's just places that's just bare ground. And if we just keep leaving that bare ground, it's going to get bigger and bigger, because every time it washes more of it away. So pretty soon you got nothing but rocks.
There's not much there to start with.
Right, exactly. So you need to get grass seeded on those things, and we need to get those fairways watered, and there's places on tee boxes where half the tee box is dirt. That doesn't look good for our course, and I've had a lot of complaints of golfers, because I golf about every day, and they tell me about it. So I said I will express those and bring it to our workshop. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think we ought to be doing something. We ought to be checking, get the fairways, waters going, and there is. I know he told me that some of them weren't working, and I said, well, maybe we ought to be trying them out and figure out and change the heads around if we're having problems. So, what do you think, Rich?
I've been working with Tyler, and he's been really working on the irrigation system, and it's a lot of rolled plastic to galvanized fittings that are broke. He's been changing out sprinkler heads. I mean, he's doing the best he can with what he's got, and I think he's keep getting on top of it, especially with the worst problem is the galvanized rusting because of the age of it, and then you got the rolled plastic that's rubbing on rocks. So he's trying to get there. But
Well, I was
yeah,
on
I need to get with him and try and see if we can get more fairways watered, or at least see if we can get a tanker.
A tee box. Well, you
on
know,
the cart and
a
get-
lot of
get
those
some of the
heads
grasses.
are covered with grass, so they haven't even tried those.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've been fixing a lot of leaks, but certainly it doesn't look like a lot of them on the tee boxes. Yesterday, you about had to have a hammer to drive to get a tee into the tee box because they're getting that dry. So
Yeah, and it's
there
only
is
gonna
water
get
on the
worse.
tee boxes, and but they go around and, you know, I would think that it's an automatic system that you could put those timers on and do it. You don't have to have somebody running around turning them one on at a time. I don't know about that, but I'm sure that most of those are on timers, and they can do that.
I think that was in the budget for capital improvements in maybe both 22 and 23, and it was determined that we couldn't afford it.
Well, we need to, you know, if we're going to try to make a golf course out of it, we better afford it,
Yeah.
because,
It's been discussed.
well, I haven't ever, as long as I've been here, and that's since last December, it's never been brought up, other than I met with the interim DM and Tyler, and we talked about those. We said we need to have some long-term goals. We need to be reseeding one fairway at least a year, because we've got old-style grass that's flat. It is not soya grass that stands up. You know, you go to some of these courses. I mean, this course is terrible to hit off unless you're really a good player, to consistently hit off the ground. It's like hitting off of cement. So if we get grass and we water, and the reason how you can grow grass is you got to have water, the first thing, and then you got to fertilize, and they do fertilize, but you need water, not just rain, water. Most of the courses water every day, water their fairways every day. We have not. And I don't know, since I've been here, I don't recall have many sprinklers ever been on the fairway. It's pretty dry now. It's really dry because it hasn't rained, and there is not much place to hold the water, so it's a daily thing, and you can't put on a lot of water because it runs away. So we put on 2 or 3, couple of times a day, you sprinkle the fairways. Simple to do. Let's work on getting that done, Rich.
All right, I'll get with Tyler, and I'm sure he will be getting hold of me.
Okay?
and
Because I've had a lot of people concerned talking about it, so
Yep.
I thought I'm going to pass that on.
Perfect.
Very good,
All right.
thank you.
We'll get on it.
Okay, that's the agenda covered. Shall we adjourn?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second? Anybody? Yep, one. You didn't sign up that you were going to say anything. Yeah, you may, but you didn't put it down here.
I'll try to do better next time.
Okay.
Al Selleck, 22 Buckskin Lane. Two things. First of all, can we get the clock fixed? I think that might have been mentioned before, but
Yeah, last month. I'm not fixing it on purpose now.
We'll ask the inspector to check it.
yeah, get the. You mean the one that's not lit? Okay.
It's 9:15, it's really 10:15.
And the sign,
Okay.
and the edge of the sign's not lit. Okay, secondly, they put new tile and stuff at the pool.
Uh-huh.
And I would encourage every commissioner to go down and look at it. It's improperly installed. It's like, I'm guessing 12-inch tiles. They may be 9s. But anyways, when they put them in, and they're not staying down. So you got one coming up a little bit. I've heard they've already had one child tripped over it. I had another lady tell me she almost, she caught her foot and almost tripped because after they put in the tiles, and then there's this rubber strip that runs along the edge of the pool. Well, we were over there the other night. There's some places where it's up as high as 3 inches at the boundary that goes around the edge of the pool.
We'll take a look at it.
So, if you check with Janice, maybe it's, maybe it needs to be reinstalled or better glued or something.
It's a floating pad, so as it floats and gets settled out with the heat and the cold and everything, Janice and, Kim is going around and trying to keep it down and keep it maintained.
Okay.
But since it floats, it's gonna move until it gets settled.
Mr.
Just
Chairman?
might want to,
Yes.
Go ahead. I'll let Al finish first.
Janice might want to inform all of her employees of that situation, so that when somebody's at the pool and they happen to ask the employee, the clerk, hey, that's kind of up over there, the clerk could say, it's a new system, it needs to settle in, rather than, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
one other thing that I think at the workshop we ought to discuss is the pond. the pond issue, and, you know, we talked about those ponds, and I've had some people call me about it, this algaing up. Checking into it, I can see that what we did was we changed the pump from 110, or from 220 to 110. So now we have a pump in there that is pumping much like your hot tub would pump. So it's not going to do the job of aerating the water unless we put turn it back to 220. Tyler did this, and he admitted right here at the meeting, he has no pond experience. Now, why he did that, I don't know. But that's one thing that we need to do. We need to redo that and see if that, because I think that worked before. I've asked a few people what it did work before. You live right there. Could you give me some?
First 3 years I lived here with the fountain, which was a 220 two-horse motor, we didn't have an algae problem. Then for some reason, they decided to remove those heavy-duty pumps and replace it with a little 110-volt bubbler. We've had nothing but algae, frogs, and snakes. And it's got to be fixed.
Meeting last week or week before that with Dave and Tyler both about the pond. The pump's a good idea. I'm trying to figure out the pump. It's like 3 foot deep in the center of that thing, so it needs to be dredged out. We've also discussed about filling the pond in and just putting a tile system in. And then we've also talked about, last year, they talked about a pond contract with some company for a certain amount of money. Okay? But do we not move forward with this?
I don't know.
No, we
did
didn't. It was, they were gonna, first of all, Tyler said we can do without it.
Okay.
Finally, he said we could do without it. It held the pond that's on number 12, and also the pond that's on number 14, up on the 9-hole, or the 18-hole course, and the pond over there, that small pond over there. But it was, I've forgotten the number now, but it was
I thought you said it
in
was
the hundreds.
Yeah, I thought you said it was $5,000 contract. And I guess that'd be something that it'd be worth looking into long-term. But if they're gonna come in and be like, well, we're not gonna take over this contract until you dredge the pond out, or you do this amount.
Dredging costs a lot of money. I've been
Exactly.
involved in dredging,
Yeah.
and
And if they come in and say, well, we'll do a contract with you, but you have to do these 5 steps before we sign a contract of $5,000 a year or whatever, then we have to look at it financially to see if it's even worth it.
And you can treat that algae with a chemical like aquazine or atrazine. Atrazine's actually not cleared for fish. Aquazine is the same product, but it is cleared for fish by the Game and Parks of Nebraska. But I don't know if there's fish in there, but it will kill the algae. But the problem is, it doesn't last too long. And you come right back, and if you do it with aquazine, which is don't kill the fish, and atrazine is what they use on crop grounds. So, I don't know what legally in Arkansas you can use, but I do know that it will do it. But it's with all the fertilizer and the runoff we have in this area. It's not like where we have 5 feet of topsoil and we have a mile of pasture ahead of it, of grass that stands 4 to 5 feet tall. That's what we had in Nebraska, and when I was on the NRD Natural Resources District for Northeast Nebraska. We dredged a lake. We put in a lake and had to dredge it five or 6 years later so we ended up putting one section, 640 acres of grass, and we paid those people $77 an acre to leave it in grass for 20 years. And that still didn't stop the water or the mud from coming in. We ended up having to dredge it, and I'm thinking of how many $1 million that cost us. We had 5 causeways that we put in, and we only did just a short little piece of maybe a quarter mile, or the first quarter mile of where it came in. So dredging, it was in the millions. So dredging costs a lot of money. We made all of those dikes. with the dredging that we pumped out, and then we put, on top of those dikes, we put gravel, and then on the sides, we put all white rock, big white rock, and that's what we made, because we had piles and piles of topsoil that we had to dredge out. I mean, it got to where it was the only thing that was available was the channel, and the rest of it was about this deep. But I think they dredged it to be about 15 to 20 foot deep in the channel, and the rest of the lake went into about that's in the first part of it. Now, that's just in a short section of the lake, okay?
I think what we need to do here is, Rich and the people that we have on staff need to take a look at it and try to come up again. We've kicked it around for 3 years, and it needs to be fixed. Al?
I would volunteer to meet with anybody to discuss the pond. As far as fishing right now, I think the last fish was the one that the two snakes were fighting over one day. I'm not sure which snake got them eventually, but they were head to head. As far as dredging, when they built the new rec center, there's no silt screen put around it. So there's that's why you have a lot of dirt went down there at that time. I sent him pictures of it. I was told, oh, it's just a little mud. Well, little mud, little silt makes mud. But if you're going to fill in the pond on number 1 on the 9-hole, remember that the pool, the parking lot where the pool is, whenever it rains,
It drains.
it all drains down to the corner in front of the pavilion. There's a speed bump there, which is actually a water diverter, comes into the ditch and then comes down the stream through my yard into that pond. And when that fills up, it goes out the culvert into the creek behind it and goes down into the lake. So whatever chemicals you're going to put in it,
Have to be
remember,
approved.
eventually it's going to go into, you might want to check with the Corps because it's going to end up
Yeah,
in.
you'd have to have the right kind of
Lake.
chemicals, otherwise you couldn't do it.
Thank you.
Uh,
I think
when you
we
get some
need to do
discussions
some work
going,
on it and.
give me a call, I'll
And research it,
come and do
and we'll do it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I have one positive comment to make, my last, and that is, I went over to the new rec center yesterday after church, talked to Lori, we had one clerk on duty. The building is beautiful. I voted against it because it's not worth $888,000, but I went through it with Lori. There was one person in the kiddie pool and 2 people in the big pool, and that was just before noon, but it's beautiful, beautiful. They're having a party this Thursday night, the 20th of June. They're having a band there and so forth, potluck. But I wanted to thank Richard and some of the staff over there because, Rich, I don't think we had to hire a plumber to do the small pool plumbing. I think Richard and maybe somebody else did that. When the destruction crew was over there, they dropped the roof on all the plumbing for the little pool, and they said, call a plumber. They didn't fix it. They didn't want to fix it, unsupervised over there. But anyway, it is really looking beautiful. It's, Rich, it's looking beautiful, and I appreciate the employees over there, what they did.
Thank you. Okay, that's the agenda that's been covered. Your motion for
There
adjournment.
was a motion and a second already for the adjournment.
Yes, we do.
We just wasn't.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.